So universities are now thinking about how they can return in September and offer students a real university experience. Obviously, at the forefront of their planning must be the health, safety and well-being of their staff, their students and also the wider community. So what can a university do to make its campus COVID secure?
And I think that's a difficult question for universities to deal with, because campus environments are very diverse spaces. They go from lecture halls to swimming pools, from student accommodation to individual offices, and from high dining to takeaway trucks. And so there can't be a one-size-fits-all approach. There's an awful lot of government guidance published for the general business sector, which will apply to university campus, and also the Universities UK guidance that's applicable. Even some of the government guidance which you think immediately doesn't apply to a university campus, such as the guidance aimed at shopping centres, could be appropriate to a university campus, who often have small hubs of space where various landlord and tenant relationships arise, and shops and university services all branch from a central space.
I think that's right, and there are several measures here that universities can put into place, I think, which will help make the campus COVID secure. Just thinking of the obvious one is the people on campus. So you've got to minimise the amount of movement around campus. There's been a lot of talk of putting students in bubbles, so they live together, they study together and they move around campus together, which obviously would minimise the risk of transmission. You've got to think about how people are going to get to campus. Can you minimise public transport? If university runs a bus service, can it put on more buses? Make sure its bus stops are spread out so people don't all get on and off the bus at the same point. Maybe if there's space on campus to put extra car parking facilities, that's worth considering. I know the University of Bolton are loaning their students bikes, so they don't have to rely on public transport as much. The real challenge will be the move towards blended learning. I think you'll get a lot of universities who've already said that they won't be offering face-to-face lectures this year. Everything will be online, which will then free up campus space to be used for maybe smaller teaching classes, smaller face-to-face classes that can be carried out in rooms where you can observe the social distancing. Then you've got to think about the collaborative space. And obviously that's been a really popular thing for universities recently. Lots of space where the students can mix and mingle and network, make friends, make new contacts, which is great normally, but not when you're trying to make your campus COVID secure. So thinking about maybe still having tables where people can sit and chat, but putting up perspex screens so they're safe, or maybe standing tables around cafes. So you can have a grab and go snack, you stand up, you eat, people aren't congregating in large numbers.
Yes, I think, collaboration is essential to a university campus. And if you look at any university estate strategy prior to the current pandemic, they all speak to collaboration. They all see collaboration as integral to life on campus. And I think we need to be very careful not to suggest that collaboration should disappear entirely, but clearly these are difficult times for collaboration, and what we need to promote is collaboration in the safest way possible, and I think that comes in two ways. Firstly, in terms of cleaner space, I think you need, first of all, to demonstrate and reassure people that space is clean, and that comes from actually creating cleaner space, but also showing showing visible cleaners and visible hand gel, and allowing people access to disinfectant to disinfect their own space. I think it comes into the design of space and choice of materials. You have to create space that's easy to clean, and perhaps that means a reduction of the use of textiles, for example, in creating common spaces on campus, and the move to slightly easier to wipe down materials and structures. I think in offices, that means clear desk policies being more strictly enforced, so that people take away their stuff, making it easier to clean desks. It probably means moving to things like laptops over a desktop computer, so you're not sharing peripherals. And I think there's also an element of demonstrable safety on campus. That means people wearing PPE where appropriate, maybe putting in place temperature scanning facilities to allow people to check their temperature to reassure themselves and others that everything is okay. I think the other thing that comes into this is reduction of the amount of contact points on campus. Use of smart technology has been being rolled out across university campuses, but we can see that rollout coming much sooner. In simple means that's contactless payment, contactless doors, contactless lifts. But I think more so in terms of using smart technology to track movements on campus, not in a kind of particularly big brother individualistic kind of a way, but more in a just identifying trends to identify pinch points.
I think that's right. And you touched earlier on universities having these hub centres where you have shops and cafes and the bank and things like that. I think that's particularly important. We talk about collaboration for universities where they have tenants, to start talking to these tenants now, looking at the leases, what rights do they have, what consents might be needed in order to make these alterations, you know, putting in one-way systems, putting up new signage, and also where the university itself is a tenant. They need to be talking to their landlords now to make sure where they need consent, they can get that and get the necessary changes and alterations in place before September, because September will come around quickly and universities will need to be able to say on A-level results day to their students, look, we've made our campus safe, this is what you can expect, and please start in September, don't defer.
Yeah, I think that's important. Early dialogue is important to reassure staff and students that the return to campus will be as safe as possible. An early dialogue between landlord and tenant relationships is also important, because we can see, certainly in the shopping centre example, that you will need your tenants to ask things of you and for you to ask things of tenants. And you can see that restricting access to a shopping centre sort of space has an impact on everyone who operates in that area. And so it's important that that's agreed between the parties to avoid some sort of dispute.
I think that's right. So lots for universities to do before September.
Absolutely.